Leopard geckos are certainly one of the best pet lizards in the entire pet trade and kind of the perfect starting lizard. Well, here at BHB, it's that time of the year again, and that would be breeding season and egg collection season. So I'm going to spend some time talking about leopard geckos, how you can breed them if you decide to, and again, show you how we collect eggs and incubate them. You're watching Snake Bites. Let's start with how we keep our leopard geckos. Now, keeping in mind, we're a breeding facility, so we want to have the most aesthetically clean and easy to keep cages as possible. So certainly, if you're keeping a leopard gecko as a pet, you can have beautiful decorations and a really nice viv. But I want to talk about if you want to breed leopard geckos and how we keep them. And we just keep them in these 28-quart tubs right here. And basically, all we do is we keep a shoebox with a little bit of coconut bedding, and we're using actually the Reptile Prime bedding because it's really absorbent. And we'll keep 4 females. As you can see, these guys are jumping around like crazy. We'll keep 4 females per tub, and we don't keep any male in it with them whatsoever. And they love to go in this hide box right here. It's got a hole in the top right here, and they'll go in there for a couple reasons. Number one, they feel secure. Number two, that higher humidity helps with their shedding cycles and so on like that. And then of course, when they're going to be egg laying, this is where they're going to lay their eggs, because in the wild they're going to find a damp area deep down in a crevice in that desert area so that they can lay their eggs and so that they don't desiccate. Other than that, all we do is we keep a fresh dish of water. Now, a lot of people say that leopard geckos don't even drink, and some people don't even keep water in with their leopard geckos. They get all their moisture from their food. But to be honest with you, with a living animal, I always think you keep water in with it. Even if they don't drink it, it makes me feel better. And then lastly, all we do is we take mealworms and we have them dust them with Vionate and calcium powder. And this is primarily what we're feeding our leopard geckos. We will supplement sometimes with roaches and crickets, but for the most part, 90% of their diet is mealworms with calcium and vitamin additives. Before we get started about the breeding process, I want to talk about dormancy. We actually do brumate our leopard geckos, and some people have success breeding them without brumation, but we personally feel that it's an important part of the process. Now, what we'll do is we'll cool them down from their normal temperatures, which are about 84 degrees ambient with a 90 to 95 degree hotspot. We'll cool them down for 2 months to about 65 to 70 degrees. That little bit of cool down puts them into dormancy, and it'll actually cause spermatogenesis and cause females to start cycling. Now, what's interesting about leopard geckos is you can actually manipulate their breeding season per their dormant period, but you have to do it on first year females. So we cool in, say, December and January, bring them up in February to start breeding. If you wanted to raise your stuff up and hibernate them, say, in June and July and breed them in August and September, you can completely do that if you have a refrigeration center and can cool them down like that. But you can't do it with a group that's already breeding on a particular cycle. It's got to be on a cycle the first very time. That's the way a lot of the big production houses actually produce leopard geckos 12 months of the year, is that they'll have like 6 different groups that are hibernating or brumating at different times of the year. Kind of interesting, right? So after that brumation, that's when we pull them out, and we again keep 4 females. Now, you may ask, they can't breed without a male, right? That's the next step. So we keep our males separate, 1 male to a tub, and of course we'll keep the males in a 14-quart, which is half the size of the adult females, because there's only 1 male in there. We keep a hide box, we keep the same water and the same food, and what we do is we actually cycle the males through. So once we bring stuff out of hibernation, we'll start to feed the females for about 7 to 10 days. As soon as they get a little bit beefy up, and they'll usually just eat like crazy out of hibernation, then we start cycling males through. Now, you may ask yourself, how many females can a male breed to? The truth is we typically breed 1 male to 12 females, but I know people that have bred up to 20 females. So again, if you're keeping 4 females in a box, this male can actually cycle through up to 5 cages of females. Basically, the way we do it is we'll go 1 day in this female's cage, then we'll go the next day in the next one, and we keep cycling them through, and then we'll typically give him the weekends off so that he can kind of regenerate. Make sure, you can see even this guy, just a month into breeding season, his tail is starting to thin out a little bit, and that's kind of because he's depleting a lot of his energy into breeding. So if you continue to breed too long, a male can actually become very unhealthy. Also, the more females you breed, the more energy it takes. So we find that 12 females seems to be a pretty good number where a male can stay healthy. He can breed for that entire 2.5 month breeding season, and then we can beef him back up to get ready for hibernation. So Jessica's pulling eggs for the geckos, but I'm going to kind of show you how we go about doing it. And the first thing that we do is we'll use these containers right here. This is how we incubate our eggs. And basically this is what a product called Hatch Right, which is a vermiculite with a water isomer added. So it's actually got high humidity, but there's no moisture. And then we actually use these little egg trays from THG, and the little eggs fit right in the little slots, which is really good. And of course they have holes so the humidity comes up, and then we actually cap them like this, and then, you know, they hatch out really well. I'll get more into incubation in a minute. So basically, like I had mentioned before, you have these boxes that are full of coconut husk, and that's where they're going to lay their eggs. So what you can basically usually do is you'll see if they start to excavate their bedding in a direction, that's usually where they're laying the eggs. These females look like they're all pretty much full of eggs right now. I'm not sure that we're going to find any eggs in this box, and you can see that the bedding is pretty straightforward, so they haven't really been pushing stuff around. But we'll take a really quick look, and basically what you do is you just kind of go through, you do it. If it's not there, you move on. And of course, every week when Jessica's pulling eggs, if the bedding starts to get dry, she'll moisten it up, because you want that bedding to be nice and moist. You don't want it to be wet, but you want it to be nice and moist. And that's one of the reasons why that reptile prime bedding is so good, because it absorbs the humidity, but it's not wet. So it's really super absorbent. And this, on the other hand, is a box you can certainly see has been excavated. You can see on this side, there's hardly any bedding left, whatever, and everything is pushed this way. This tells me that there's probably eggs, so check this out really quick. We'll just go through and we'll start looking to see if there are eggs. Let's see. So far, no eggs. Oh, maybe this will, oh, there it is. See, there's our first egg right there. Right there, we got one egg there, and where there's one, there's always gonna be another one. Let's see. We only find one, oh, there's the other one right there. And so the reason I say that there's two is because female geckos will lay 2 eggs every single clutch. Every time they lay, each ovary will produce 1 egg, and they've got 2 ovaries. Now, every now and then, one of the ovaries won't fire, and you will get 1 egg, but it's pretty rare, typically 2. So basically, all we do once we get that is we'll take our incubation cup, and we just basically put these eggs in the slots, just like this. Now, the thing that's interesting about leopard gecko eggs is that you can roll them. I mean, it's still try to keep them upright. There's no reason to roll them for whatever. But unlike snake eggs, the embryo doesn't attach. So if it does get rolled, you don't kill the eggs. Again, just for common practice with reptile eggs, I typically try to keep them the same. But if for some reason you kind of push them around and they roll a little bit, don't stress out about them. They're fine. But you can see these pearly white eggs look really good. So let's go ahead and check some more eggs, see where Jessica is doing with her eggs, and then we'll circle back and we'll talk about egg incubation. Certainly Jessica has a lot of eggs to pull today and a lot of females to go through. We're going to help her out a little bit, but she's got her work cut out for her. Let's get back to that clutch of eggs that I just pulled and how we keep track of them, because obviously each cage has different mutations of animals, and we're breeding for the nicest kind of quality animals that we possibly can. So we want to make sure that when these eggs hatch, we not only know what they look like from the parents, but we also know genetically, because it's important to know if they're het for certain mutations. If they're het for albino, let's say, it's important to know what line of albino that they're het for, because there's 3 lines of albinos. We never want to sell something that's het for Tremper and have it be het for Bell or het for Rainwater. So it's important to make sure we know what geckos are in this tub. And the thing that's nice about these tubs are the fact that they have the little dividers. So when these eggs hatch, they're going to stay in this little cube right here. So we can see we actually marked our racks. This happens to be D, and then of course we go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the rack that we actually pulled them from. So we'll mark D6 on the tub, as you can see here, and then we'll mark the date that it's actually laid. That way when we start looking at eggs hatching, we know about when they're going to hatch. And we also can go back and we know exactly what's in this cage because we have everything marked. There's a bull raptor, a Tremper Sunglow, there's an Apter white and yellow, and of course we know what male it's being bred to. So when they hatch out, we know exactly what the genetic eggs behind, not just what they look like, but whatever is hidden in the genetics of it. So that's basically how we keep track after we pull all of these eggs. But we can talk about how we incubate the eggs and what makes leopard geckos so different than most reptiles. Alright, so what makes leopard geckos different from a lot of reptiles is the fact that there's something that's called temperature sex determination, or TSD. And basically that means that how you incubate the eggs can determine what sex the animals actually are. Now, other reptiles are like this as well. Some turtles, some crocodilians, other lizards, but a lot of reptiles, it doesn't matter what temperature. If you're even high or low, you're still going to hatch males and females, and you can't really determine the sex from their temperature, regardless. So what it works with leopard geckos is the fact that anything that's below about 80 degrees, you know, that 80 degree mark is about where you have to be careful. Once you hit about 82 degrees, you're going to get male and female, all the way up to about 85 or 86 degrees, right in that range. But when you're below, say 77, 78 degrees, you're going to hatch all female leopard geckos. Maybe once in a great while you might hatch a male, but 99.9% of them are going to be females. Again, when you're up in the upper 80s, say 88 to 90, even to 92, you're going to hatch all males. And then there's that in between where you're going to hatch males and females. So what we do is when we say, hey, we want to hatch 85% females, we'll find a spot in our room that's about 78 degrees or so, and then we'll go ahead and just put them there. This happens to be the case in these racks. There's no heat tapes on these racks right now, and right now they're about 78 degrees. So we're literally just putting them in these boxes like this, and we're sliding them in the racks. Once these racks fill up, we'll find another spot, and again, of course, when we're trying to find males, we'll find a spot like on top of the racks that's about 88 to 90, 92 degrees. We know we're going to hatch all males that way. So that's basically it. So what's nice about leopard geckos is you really don't need an incubator per se, because if you just want to hatch them, you can have them 80, 82, 84 degrees. You're going to hatch males, you're going to hatch females, and if you want to do something specific, you can keep them cooler or keep them warmer depending on what you want to actually hatch. So leopard geckos are really cool in that way because you can actually determine how many females and how many males you actually hatch. So leopard geckos are actually one of the more entry-level breeding animals. When you're doing it on a small scale, it's actually very simple. You just follow the simple rules I just said. Basically cool them down, bring them up, feed them a whole lot, get the males in with them, make sure they have a good hide box that they can lay in, put them in an incubator. If you want females, you incubate one temperature. If you want males, the other. Or if you want to split, you just put it right down the middle. These guys are absolutely incredible to work with, and there are hundreds and hundreds of amazing paint jobs for you to choose from, not only to breed, but also to buy for your pet reptile. I hope that you guys have found a new love for leopard geckos as much as I have. And as always, guys, I'm Facebook and tweeting and Instagramming my way through things. So make sure to follow me over at SnakeBytesTV. Until next week, you've been watching Snake Bites.